My name is Dr.Barry, and I teach AP Language and Composition at Aztec High School. One of my students, Sierra Villaneuva, wrote an outstanding paper on suicide, and I thought I would share it with the global community. And it zones in on an event that occurred to her. Her best friend died of suicide in December 2019. The paper is titled 1-800-273-8255. For decades, teen suicide has been a growing issue in the United States. Every year, suicide takes the lives of 44,965 in America alone. Worldly statistics show that nearly 800,000 teens die from suicide every year. This is roughly one suicide every 40 seconds. It needs to be known that it is not the person who kills themselves. It is the mental illness or past trauma that they are facing. As a country, Americans need to be made more aware of teen suicide and the lasting effects before it is too late. By definition, suicide is the act or an instance of taking one's own life voluntarily and intentionally. It is often carried out as a result of despair from something in their lives that they perceive to be unbearable. Suicidal ideation can occur when a person feels they are no longer able to cope with an overwhelming situation. This overwhelming pain could be caused by a mental disorder or past life experiences. A mental disorder is a wide range of conditions that will affect a person's mood, thinking, and behavior. Some examples of this are clinical depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and PTSD. Some past experiences that can also cause teen suicide are bullying, sexual abuse, physical abuse, substance abuse, and parental neglect. These types of causes should open our eyes to see that we truly never know what's going on in people's lives. Many people seem to believe that suicide is a selfish act that shows weakness. However, people do not die by suicide because they do not want to live. People die by suicide because they want to end their suffering. Tina Szymanska, a survivor of several suicide attempts, says that as a teenager, her thoughts were, "I honestly can't see a future. I want someone to help me, to take away the hurt and make me happy, but no one can." People with suicidal thoughts tend to receive what is known as tunnel vision. As shown by Tina Szymanska, as a 17-year-old, this is when they think that there is nothing left to cure their pain besides death itself. A primary source from a widow of a man who committed suicide states, "In the mind of the one who takes their own life, it's a selfless act." Through her husband's writings and discussions, it gives clear evidence that his mind made him think he was a burden to everyone around him. Any suicidal teenager thinks they are a burden to their family, friends, and teachers. They believe that the world would be better without them, so they take themselves out of it. In the reality of the situation, this would be considered selfless, because in their own mind, because they are thinking about everyone else before themselves. These teenagers' minds decide to put themselves in harm's way to ease the pain they think they bring onto others. It is easier for people to say suicide is a selfish act, rather than really try to process why someone would take their own life. In the human mind, it makes the most sense because of the pain that suicide brings to loved ones. However, this type of tragedy does not show weakness, but strength for these people who have struggled for so long. It is important to be educated about the warning signs of suicide, so as a country, citizens can make a difference. There are a span of thoughts and feelings that lead to suicidal ideation in teenagers. Suicidal ideation is when a teen has thoughts of wanting to die. It first begins with insane mood swings in their daily lives. Due to their age, some young adults can also be challenged with intolerable emotional pain, but will just as quickly feel fine as if nothing had happened. On top of that, there are also feelings of hopelessness, guilt, and shame. These certain feelings are direct causes of a teenager believing they are not good enough for their family, friends, or a boyfriend, girlfriend. This can also be related to school and or sport performance. Teenagers faced with these emotions are divided amongst themselves. One part of them wants to live and is goal-directed and life-affirming, while the other part is self-critical, self-hating, and ultimately self-destructive. It is very hard to dig out of a hole of negativity, especially when it is very deep. It is vital to understand that there is hope for a high school or college student facing suicidal thoughts, especially if it is their first time experiencing intense emotions and situations. When an adolescent faces suicidal thoughts and feelings, there are many common behaviors that indicate a huge risk. First, the most obvious behavior would be self-harm, which would be deliberately inflicting any pain on a human body. There is a huge red flag for suicide because it shows that this person wants to feel some sort of physical pain. Classmates in school should notice that if a depressed person is covering up, even when it is very hot out, they are likely hiding some sort of self-inflicted wound on their body. A second common behavior would be increased use of drugs and alcohol. Drugs and alcohol are what are known as distractions in a teenager's life. These substances take away the pain, stress, and anger in that person's mind. However, instead, they fill the mind up with carelessness and numbness so that there is no pain to be felt in anything they do. Lastly, the most normal of the common behaviors would be changes in sleeping patterns. This is the hardest to diagnose as a suicidal behavior because it is so common in teenagers today. In this behavior, the sleeping patterns are going to be seen as more drastic because it will start happening very quickly. These behaviors are something to look out for because it will start draining the body physically and because it is important to get help to a person as early as possible. By seeing how important this issue is today in society, teen suicide renews the question, is this problem preventable? Suicide is not inevitable for anyone. By starting the conversation, providing support, and directing help to those who need it, we can prevent suicides and save lives. This is first started by being educated about how huge teen suicide is in America. This also involves knowing the risk factors, signs, and behaviors that lead to something like suicide ever happening. America has hundreds of suicide prevention outreaches all over the country that many people do not know about. The most known organization all over the United States would be the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The number 1-800-273-8255 is the suicide hotline number that is open for help 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. There are trained professionals ready on the line to help anyone talk through what parents and friends may not be able to understand. Through personal experience, I wish I was more educated about the signs of suicide before the realization of the serious matter that entered my life unexpectedly. On December 18, 2019, my best friend Joshua Paul Mitchell left this earth to start his new journey in the afterlife. His battle ended early when he committed suicide just at the age of 16. Joshua is the flirtiest, happiest, funniest, and most athletic boy I had ever met. From the time we were little up to his last days, he would always have the biggest smile plastered on his face. Joshua used his smile as a mask to the rest of the world. In reality, Joshua suffered from anxiety and depression caused by an event that occurred his freshman year. For that, he will always be the most selfless person I know. He saw that everyone else was struggling, so he decided to keep his pain to himself. I know the pain I feel now that he is gone is not even close to what he must have been feeling while he was struggling on earth. More than anything in this world, I wish I could have been more aware of the warning signs and behaviors of suicide before it was too late. Now all that can be done is to get other people educated and promote how it can be stopped. Teen suicide is a severe problem that is seen time and time again in the United States today. More public awareness needs to be generated of how prevalent of a killer suicide really is. It can be triggered by so many things, so it is important to be able to recognize the warning signs that can lead to an attempted or successful taking of one's life. Not one teenager deserves to go through that pain alone. Each human life is equally as precious as the others. In a world full of self-hatred, be kind to someone today. Humans cannot take their time on earth for granted because nobody knows when it is their time to go. One that will never know if seeing that person will be their last. Thank you very much.